A quote from the late great Freddie Mercury. Jaws was never my scene, and I don't like Star Wars.
VideoGameVegas.
He's so cute.
Friends, Video Game Vegas. I remember asking myself some time ago, why don't I like Star Wars anymore? And I'm not talking about the first pivotal film that hit theaters back in 1977, nor am I referring to its two amazing original sequels, nor to its other quality media products and video games. But the answer as to where it all began is very simple. The Phantom Menace. This movie gave me hope that Star Wars could live again on the big screen, the first and most beloved way I remembered it. But it was so poorly written and contrived that to me, as a fan, it felt like a slap in the face, especially after wanting so very long to see Star Wars come back. But it did make me realize something for the first time. That anyone, even its creator, can make garbage, slap a beloved name onto it, and try to sell me that garbage in the guise that it must be good because it has that revered name attached to it. Now, The Phantom Menace alone didn't kill Star Wars for me. It actually continued on through its two horrible movie sequels. I felt at that point George was just sticking it to me. Like in the third film, when Palpatine, the most evil villain in the universe, starts making all sorts of goofy faces while zapping Mace Windu. Or in the second film, when Jar Jar Binks took time to smile directly at the audience, as if to say, "Oh, you're going to complain about the great George Lucas, huh? Well, I'll show you cretins." And showed us he did. But unfortunately for George, this sparked something in me that affected how I consumed media from that point on. If someone tried to take something I loved and twist it into something I didn't want, I would effort not to buy or support it. It fostered in me an ideal that brand loyalty was not a worthwhile endeavor, and instead, I should be chasing quality loyalty. But little did I know how devious the trend of putting whatever someone wanted behind the names of the brands I loved would go. George Lucas was child's play compared to what was on the horizon. Bad writing became the least of the troubles. Today, when I think of why I don't like Star Wars, though bad writing is still often a part of it, with glimmers of good that shine through once in a while, let us not forget the Baby Yoda. At least in the first two seasons of The Mandalorian, I haven't watched past that. It now comes down to three very scary reasons as to why. Political agenda, propaganda, and indoctrination attempts into false ideologies. The franchises I loved, and yes, this goes way beyond just Star Wars, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, DC, The Lord of the Rings, I can go on, are now being utilized, and sometimes weaponized, subtly or not, to willfully attempt to force axioms and ideals onto people who just want to be entertained. I guess I just come from a time where the idea of going to a movie simply for entertainment was a thing. I know, crazy, right? And it blows my mind that some in the entertainment industry wonder why I, and many like myself, have lost interest in a lot of the new stuff they put out. And it insults me to no end when they suggest that it must be some sort of franchise fatigue. Are they out of their mind? I'll watch as many well-made Star Wars and superhero films you can throw at me, as long as they're not laden with propaganda. The audacity of suggesting something like franchise fatigue is a blatant and total deflection, nullifying any idea of possible cluelessness by these mega corporations. I'll call this fatigue what it really is: agenda fatigue. These franchises used to mean something to me. something good and fond. And I don't appreciate that many are being used as tools, with duplicitous intent, to attempt to skew or demand changes to people's beliefs and behaviors. And if one dares complain, or simply offers a differing opinion, they are often affixed with a label that, and let's not kid ourselves, has become societal supported hate speech, as these labels bring real hate to those called them. I don't support hate speech on any side, and for those who intend this and use this tactic, can pass on having conversations with me, and more importantly, run the risk of losing any legitimacy to the stance they're taking, and are in fact bullying. Those who resort to name-calling can, and most often, expose their lack of confidence in the ideals and beliefs they're trying to profess. The ones who don't devolve into this and stick to facts and well-thought-out arguments champion their position. Today, when writer strikes happen, I almost feel no compulsion to back the writers now. I no longer want to see resources go to those who insert ploys to manipulate people in my entertainment anymore. It's sinister, as these, on the surface, supposed subtle messages, or changes of certain recognizable source elements or expected aspects of a franchise, not for artistic purposes, but to bolster an agenda, sold to us as seemingly innocent ways to strengthen diversification and bring people together, something many of us actually do want, soon reveal themselves as everything you knew before was bad, and you will now think and do as we say, and if you don't, you're a purveyor of hate. It's no longer good enough just to let people be, accepting and leaving each to their own scruples, but now to expect everyone's absolute compliance into a new ideology. Where's the diversity and inclusion in that? All this does is force everyone into a new single way of thinking, where certain aspects can be downright false, or unprincipled, or even devoid of simple logic. And if you think it'll stop there, trust me, there's fanatical thinking in every crowd, and it'll never be enough. And if left unchecked, be prepared to hear the phrase, "if you thought that was bad," many more times in one's lifetime. I'm all for treating people equitably, but as it stands now, I think it's folly to continue to fund those who've shown they rather focus on telling me how to live my life rather than let me get my movie on. Now don't get me wrong, I don't place all the blame squarely on the writers, no. The corporations themselves have been the ones funding and pushing this unscrupulous trend for so long now. And I also blame myself for spending money so long, idiotically speaking with my wallet, obviously sending the message that I'm somehow on board with this, when I'm not. Now I'm going to propose something radical, though much of this is lighthearted. But wouldn't it be interesting if we could get a movie again, from a deliberately tarnished franchise, that was made with only entertainment intention in mind? And let me preface what only entertainment intention means. This means only done with entertainment purposes without any intent to harm. A movie that isn't afraid to stick to aesthetic familiarities that made the franchise so popular and loved, staying true to the source while telling new creative stories. And it isn't worried it might offend someone, because let truth prevail, folks, everything is going to be offensive to someone, and some will choose to feel harm even when the intent to do them harm isn't there. And there isn't a movie out there to fit all. Never will be. And this also, most importantly, means this movie will contain no agendas whatsoever. Just entertainment, folks. And I do believe this movie can be made today by human beings. But if humans can't get the job done, which let's face it, they haven't done a bang-up job for quite a while now as it pertains to many of my former favorite franchises, then maybe we put those resources into, say, artificial intelligence, AI, which in all seriousness, I find a bit creepy, because I love to write and craft things. But sometimes I fantasize finding a futuristic movie maker program, typing in the words Star Wars, and then listing my following criteria. I want a cool Star Wars sequel film that takes place right after The Return of the Jedi, but with a wholly different and unique story. Use only the original trilogy, 4, 5, and 6, as a source, and leave out any of the special edition crap forced in later. Lopty neck forever. Oh, and absolutely no reusing catchphrases. No more, I have a bad feeling about this, and the like. Okay, so may the Force be with you is fine, but that's it, and don't overuse it. I'd like it to star the original cast and characters, using the best deepfake technology to recreate how they looked back in the day. I'd like to have my eyes dazzled with the latest special effects, as practical effects, though cool, didn't make the original Star Wars trilogy great alone. It was the writing and acting that did most of the heavy lifting. I want Ewoks and not Gungans. In fact, let's pretend the prequel films never happened. And while we're at it, let's forget 7, 8, and 9 as well. And do not add in any agendas, politics, or sways to make me think up is down. Hit the enter key and load it up. As AI stands now, from what I've seen at least, it won't be able to create anything near or even coherent enough to a good movie experience. And I don't want to see a machine replace the magic the human mind can put forth. But if technology can scare the most creatively bankrupt in the industry from further ruining things I love, then I'm into alternatives. At the end of the day, there are so many films and shows outside of these tarnished franchises that I'm interested in seeing. And I love rewatching ones I already cherish again and again. When one puts things into real perspective, there are more films and TV shows than one can watch in a lifetime, and more than enough without devious messaging and tactics inserted into them. And for me, I own such a vast movie, TV show, and video game collection that I technically never have to shell out another dime to the industry again. I think it'll always make me a little sad when I decide to skip the latest Star Wars film or any favorite franchise film or TV show after discovering some or most of its purpose is not to entertain, but to instead push the latest fad agenda. But understanding that it really isn't a Star Wars film at that point, or at least in the spirit of the franchise I enjoyed, ultimately puts me at ease. I'll never condone the practice to manipulate people through the things they love and recognize, but I also won't begrudge people to want different things than I do. I'm wise enough to know and understand that not everything is tailored just for me, nor should it be. Differences should enrich us as a world community, but it's unfortunate that ideals like true diversity and inclusion turn into bad words because of hypocrisy and duplicity. It's okay to no longer like a franchise, especially when it keeps churning out poop or being utilized for something unscrupulous. And admitting that doesn't invalidate what I did like about the franchise. And it doesn't mean I can't like it again if something produced under it is good. But I choose to value quality over blind loyalty. And I'm not going to get excited every time a brand that I used to love but has burned me is mentioned. Choose to make brands and franchises earn your loyalty, respect, and hard-earned money. Now I'm going to do something a little different with this video. If you've noticed, the comments, as well as the likes and dislikes, have been turned off/hidden. Now, people who've watched my channel introduction video know that I'm not in the business of asking people to interact with videos beyond watching them. Ratios, counts, and things beyond that aren't paramount to me. But if you were thinking of leaving a comment on this video, or to thumbs the video in either direction, I would like you to consider the following instead. If you plan to use the thumbs down button, or preferred to leave a negative comment, I encourage you, instead, to start up one of your favorite movies, or put on one of your favorite songs, and immerse yourself in the joy of it. Then share those good feelings about it with someone else. Be prepared to hear different views, some even opposite. And if you do, choose to frame it as simply another offering their opinion, even if you feel malicious intent behind their response. Know that anything negative doesn't diminish your enjoyment of it, and hold on to that. Know that trying to force your feelings won't increase your enjoyment of it, and can tend to push others away. Real diversity and inclusion start with simple things like this: sharing, and not with trying to get others to fall in line or comply with demands of your individual or group's view of the world. Inclusion will never be categorical, but finding ways to include those who you may not have is the real step. Success should never be the main goal, but the act itself is. With honesty and principled resolve at the forefront, build small bridges that lead to larger ones. Recognize and respect others' boundaries and urge the same for yourself. And continually seek ways to cohabitate with others different from yourself without sacrificing your core values. Now, if you plan to use the thumbs up button, or prefer to leave a positive comment, or even a fair critical comment, then I encourage you to spread some kindness today. If you watched another video you really enjoyed, consider brightening the creator's day by leaving a like on it. Maybe leave a comment letting the creator know what you appreciated about it. Spread some joy out into this crazy world. Gosh knows, we need more of that. Safe travels, everyone. And remember, you always have a right to your opinion, but only I have a right to mine. Until next time, stay wiggly, my friends.